Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's show. My name is Spenser Walsh, and today we are here live on Boxing Day to recap the biggest and bestest moments of the year in the lenses of news, sports, music, and memes. The four major pillars of life. We will tell you everything worth telling about 2018, a time capsule from our year to be preserved back and looked through in the eyes of history. This is it. Thank you so much for joining us here in this next hour and 20 minutes or so to recap everything in 2018. It's my pleasure to have you here. Thank you for spending your next hour or so with us. You're going to have to stay with us because it's going to be so good you won't want to click away. This 2018 Year in Review special begins now with music. No, not music. News. Sorry, news. And James Stanley joined us to kind of help out a little bit. James, take it away.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first topic of this 2018 review. And joining me now to discuss further is James Stanley. We are talking about the news this year, the highs and the lows of a crazy, crazy year. James, thank you so much for joining us as we reflect on the year that was.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so first up, the government shut down for 3 days, starting at 12:01 a.m. on January 20th, to start off Trump's second year in office. That was a pretty crazy situation, but it was like a lot. I remember it being like a lot bigger of a deal than what it seemed to be, right? Because like everyone's like, what? Something crazy just happened, but then they're just like, okay, whatever. And then things just pretty soon calmed down.
Yeah, it was definitely like a lot crazier when Trump came into office with the shutdown. I do remember how like Trump was kind of funny enough on his Twitter feed the day before he was inaugurated. Get ready for tomorrow. We're going to fix this government and turn it around forever. I thought it was kind of funny when I was looking at that the other day. And going back to the shutdown there, yeah, it was a little bit of a bigger deal because the one that we have right now is a partial shutdown. But it definitely, I mean, the one that we have right now is definitely a big deal because the politicians are still getting paid while government employees are not getting paid. Parks are closed.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
Yeah, it's not a good look. Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I mean, a lot of politicians say this, but they don't do anything about it. I personally, if there's a shutdown, I don't believe the politicians should get paid because of this. But the shutdown back then was definitely worse because it wasn't a partial shutdown unlike this time. And it was honestly, according to the Republicans, it was over the border wall debate and also the immigration debate. But I mean, personally, for me, I don't think that the border wall is going to do anything about the illegal immigration we have here, because I was looking at a study that showed that the majority of people are coming here through airplanes and then overstaying their visa and not going on their return flight. So unless you want to build a wall that's 40,000 feet high, I mean, look. Be my guest, but then that guy on that GoFundMe page is going to have to increase his thing a whole lot.
That's for sure. And again, very much of it still is all over the wall, and a lot of the same debates are being had a year later. So, so just after that, Trump delivered his State of the Union address, and then as January turned to February, Trump was balking at an immigration deal in the White House. Trump asked lawmakers in the Oval Office why there are so many people from shithole countries coming to the United States rather than from places like Norway. I remember doing that. I remember hearing that. I remember doing the show on that. I was like, oh my gosh, Trump is quite racist. That is insane. I remember I was doing a show on that. I was like, I cannot believe he actually said that.
Yeah, I still couldn't even believe that he said that either when I heard about that story. I thought it was first off, it was definitely racist, and it was over the top for something that first off, I mean, he's the president of the United States. I mean, like, this is not like a clown show. I mean, if you're like at maybe like, if he was like Seinfeld or something like that, doing a joke, a comedy show, then I can understand him doing it, but he wasn't. That's the reason why, and then he completely denied it. I mean, Lindsey Graham, I believe, came out and said that he does, in fact, remember him saying that, and each and every Democrat senator came out saying that he did that. So, when that occurred, and then he tries to run away from the situation, even though everyone's pointing the finger at him. Besides 2 or 3 Republican senators, I think it was Cotton from Arkansas.
Yeah, Tom Cotton.
And I forgot the other senator, but it was from a very conservative state, so I wasn't really too shocked. But I was definitely shocked to hear him say that and then deny it. I mean, personally, for me, I think that he should have just come out and apologized for saying that. And I don't think that that's really behavior that a president should be displaying, especially since that's just not presidential like. And first of all, that's like little kid like. It's not even an adult like thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So as February went on, Michael D. Cohen, Trump's longtime personal lawyer, said that he paid $130,000 out of his own pocket to Stormy Daniels, a pornographic film actress who claimed to have had an affair with Trump. So yeah, that obviously was the beginning of a long unfolding of stories that no one in the Trump administration was happy to hear about how Trump had an affair with Stormy Daniels, paid her off. Was that illegal? Was that not? And was it a campaign contribution? I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but you probably already know what happened if you've been paying attention to the show or the news at all. All right, but then, of course, when year-defining events took place, as a gunman opened fire in Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, killing 17 people. That tragedy obviously inspired a rush of teen activism and a new push for better gun control laws, and yeah, that was one of the most crazy and really inspiring times. It was also the first protest this year that I ever went to, as I did cover and do a little bit of video and filming, and I actually did a show after about the March for Our Lives event that took place. It was really just a remarkable time to see teens like doing some activism like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with that. And the thing that really made me kind of sad is to see the politicians down there where Scott used that as publicity stunt. He passed a quote-unquote gun control bill, which I'll give it 2 in 3 words. It doesn't do anything. It's basically what the bill does is it just restricts only one group of people. It makes the legal buying age for an assault rifle from 18 to 21. That's all it does. That's all it does. It doesn't have anything to do with background checks, which is what could have prevented that shooting with Nicholas Cruz when he went onto the YouTube page and said, I'm going to be a professional shooter. I mean, that should be a red flag right there. And the thing that's also kind of got me sad about it is that they're not really getting listened to. You know, looking at the election down there in Florida, it swung pretty heavily for the Republicans down there this year. And as well, the bills that they wanted to get passed weren't really passed. I mean, they got that school safety bill, which that was like more psychological, like background check. That wasn't actually like a gun background check, which I thought the school safety bill was absolutely like a disaster. But I am very happy to see that they're standing up and doing really fulfilling their democracy and going against, you know, the powers that are really kind of pushing against them. I was very happy to see the March for Our Lives go out after the shooting with those teens really just yelling. I mean, remember Emma Gonzalez on the CNN thing? I remember that day when she was on the interview. And then I remember seeing her on 60 Minutes a month later talking about how they have already almost $2 million in donations. I mean, I think that's pretty remarkable to me, but I'm very happy to see that they really got up and they did something for once, unlike a couple other shootings where some people have tried to get up and do something like Sandy Hook, but very little was done, sadly, about that.
Yeah, so it was really pretty incredible, yeah, that this was able to take place, and the kind of the rush of activism was really made the tragedy like seem like a small thing, and compared to like so much the pushing for change of the young people that was done. Of course, House Republicans released a secret memo accusing investigators of bias that largely fell flat. The government shut down again for a few hours, and Hope Hicks, the White House communications director, told the House investigators that her work for Trump had occasionally required her to tell some white lies, and then a few days later, she announced her resignation. And that was one of the more crazy stories. It kind of went off in the distance, but Hope Hicks, yeah, talk about like what her influence was about the White House, James.
Yeah, Hope Hicks she was actually quite interesting because I remember that when she resigned, Sarah Huckabee Sanders actually supported her and saying that, that she was a very honest woman and that she should have stayed in her job. But, I mean, before she was in the White House, she was a teenage model and then an employee of the Trump organization. So, I mean, a perfect example, like on one of your other episodes I was on with you, with the ambassador who was a member of Mar-a-Lago paying to become an ambassador. Well, by being an employee at Trump organization, maybe, Mr. Trump looking at some of her model photos, I'm guessing, that might have gotten her that job for director of communications, which that's a pretty heavy job. That's not really like an easy job to do. It's a lot of work involved in it, especially since she's actually above Huckabee Sanders in the sense that she kind of tells her what to talk about. Um, and the white lies on Trump's behalf, I think that is definitely alarming. I mean, that's similar to what Michael Cohen did. We see some connections here. Cohen said that he did it to be good for Trump by lying to really Congress, which, first off, that's a federal crime if people don't know that, which is, first off, the reason. I mean, I don't understand why he would walk down that ring of fire. I mean, the second you lie, and the second that, first off, second that he said that he lied, I mean, he just threw himself into the fire pit. And I think it's also quite interesting to see. I remember reading a story the other day that Hope Hicks is going to become the chief communications officer for Fox News. So, I mean, we see some connections here. It seems like Fox News likes to get people from Trump's administration because they're no facts Fox. They only want to listen to their own hysteria because they like to get drunk off their own conservative hysteria, which is not the real news. I mean, I've watched a couple of Tucker Carlson and Hannity things. I got to tell you, it's not my cup of tea. And a lot of the times they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, by saying that the liberals are on revenge to try to end this country is probably the most fulsome lie I've ever heard. The only people I could probably see trying to get rid of this country are the Republicans by trying to get rid of taxes. Our form of government needs taxes. How are you going to pay for it? Through the economy? Well, when the economy goes down, what are you going to do? You're just going to let the government come without funding? I mean, we need taxes in this economy, and the Republicans really seem like the ones who are rather the ones who are anti-American with the anti-tax laws that they want to put in place.
Yeah, because their philosophy is they just don't even need taxes because they don't even care about the federal government. That's pretty much their position about what
they think there should be no government. They think everyone should be just running around the place doing whatever they want. Sounds like Gary Johnson all over again.
Yeah,
which if that guy was our president, that would have been horrible.
So in March, Trump defied opposition from his own party and protests from overseas, signing orders imposing stiff and sweeping new tariffs on imported steel and aluminum. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson was fired to be replaced by Mike Pompeo and H.R. McMaster's. The president's national security advisor was forced out and replaced by John Bolton in a series of some very sketchy staffing changes there. And the March for Our Lives rally then took place in March. The special counsel Robert Mueller III subpoenaed the Trump Organization to turn over documents, including some related to Russia. John Dowd resigned as Trump's lead lawyer for the special counsel investigation. In April, Trump denied knowledge of hush payments to Stormy Daniels. The FBI raided Michael Cohen's office and hotel room, and after Trump called it disgraceful, and Trump, in response, called it disgraceful. What was a really big step from the special counsel's office, Southern District of New York, to kind of dig deeper into the investigation. That's kind of the point we really knew when it was serious. Then the United States, Britain, and France launched airstrikes against Syria over a suspected chemical weapons attack. For literally the second straight year after. It almost happened like clockwork there, which is pretty crazy. Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook chief, testified on data, privacy, and other issues before Congress as April closed out. Then, when May started, Trump began it by pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. He revamped his legal team for the Russia investigation, and the American embassy in Israel was moved to Jerusalem. And the same day, mass protests along the Gaza border raged anew. So, what was happening here was, that was really kind of my first exposure to what was going on with the Israel-Gaza conflict, because this was really the biggest flare-up that I'd really ever seen in the history of the show that the show has ever seen. So it was really incredible to see some of the things that took place. For example, the action of the IDF just firing on women and children. It was just a very scary situation. Kind of just woke me up to the realities of what was going on in the border. So that was kind of a big event for me. Like, how did you remember that event, James?
Well, I mean, I remember the event with the horrific amount of violence that was with it. I mean, I think that a two-state solution definitely is not I mean, personally for me, I think that the two-state solution should be done, but I personally don't really agree that Israel just gets to go through and just destroy, Palestine's land.
Yeah.
But I also don't like the fact that Israel is, a lot of the bombs that they threw were thrown into the land of Palestine. So especially, during that time period, which alarmed me a lot. Actually, people thought that another war was going to happen over there. I remember that when the shockness of that Turkey was mentioning that they would intervene if a war did in fact go through. But I think that if